The Dominion's fleet hung in the void beyond Saturn, its warships dark and motionless like a gathering storm. At the heart of the Armada, a Dominion command carrier, the Zarathus Eternal, pulsed with a cold golden glow, its insectoid spires casting eerie shadows across its hull. Inside, the High Executor of the Dominion, Forakmal, observed the final minutes of humanity's independence with detached amusement. The humans still refused to answer. A subordinate droned in the Executor's native tongue, its mandibles clicking. Their High Chancellor has not responded to our final ultimatum. Vorakmal exhaled through his spiracle vents in mock disappointment. Typical primitives, defiant to the end. But it is of no consequence. His gaze turned to the holographic projection of Titan, one of humanity's prized colonies. A thriving outpost, its surface dotted with research stations and industrial cities. Commence planetary purification. Let them learn the price of defiance. The order carried through the fleet. Dominion warships adjusted their positions. Plasma lances hummed to life. The first barrage struck Titan's surface in a cascade of fire and destruction, burning away centuries of human progress in moments. Cities vaporized. Millions perished in silence, their screams lost in the vacuum of space. From Earth to Mars, humanity watched in horror. The transmission was broadcasted live, an intentional display of power. The Dominion wanted fear. They wanted submission. They got rage. On Earth, in the heart of the United Earth Directorate's war chamber, the silence that followed the destruction of Titan was thick with fury. High Chancellor Evelyn Rains stood at the head of the War Council, her grip tightening on the steel railing as she forced herself to watch the burning ruins of the colony. Her eyes burned, but no tears came. There was no time for grief, only action. "This was not an act of war," she said finally, her voice sharp as a blade. "This was genocide." Around the table, the highest-ranking military officers of humanity sat in grim silence. Admiral Elias Vosk, commander of Earth's hidden war fleet, leaned forward. The scars on his face, reminders of past skirmishes with the Dominion's enforcers, twisted as his jaw clenched. "They think we're weak," Vosk growled. "They think we'll do what every other species has done, kneel, beg." "And will we?" Rains asked. Voss's response was immediate. "No." Across the room, General Atris Kane, head of Mars' Black Ops Division, nodded. "The Dominion has only ever known conquest. They've never faced an enemy that fights back." A murmur of agreement spread through the chamber. Humanity had spent centuries playing the Dominion's game, pretending to be weak, abiding by their so-called laws. But in the shadows, the Directorate had been preparing for this moment. Hidden war fleets, eye-controlled battle carriers, experimental superweapons that violated every treaty. The Dominion thought Earth was vulnerable. They were wrong. Rains took a deep breath. Her next words would change the course of human history. "The Dominion believes today marks the beginning of our end," she said. "They are mistaken." She turned to Admiral Voss. "Deploy the retribution protocol." Voss's lips curled into a wolfish grin. He stood, saluting. "As you command, Chancellor." Far beneath Europa's frozen crust, warships began to awaken. Beneath Europa's frozen surface, in the deepest, darkest abyss where Dominion eyes had never dared to look, something ancient and terrible awakened. The hidden shipyards of the United Earth Directorate, codenamed Iron Abyss, came to life. Rows upon rows of warships, buried beneath layers of ice and steel, powered up for the first time in history. Artificial intelligence cores synchronized. Fusion reactors roared to life. Railguns and plasma lances hummed as they charged. The Dominion had believed humanity too primitive, too weak, to build such a force. They had been deceived. At the heart of the abyss, the crown jewel of Earth's forbidden fleet loomed in the darkness. The UES Retribution, a warship unlike any ever constructed by human hands. 3 kilometers of reinforced titanium ceramic plating. experimental singularity cannons capable of bending space itself, an AI battle core so advanced it thought in ways even its creators barely understood. For decades, it had waited in the cold void, a weapon hidden from the universe. Now, it was time to unleash it. Admiral Elias Voss stood on the bridge of the Retribution, watching as the final launch preparations completed. Around him, his crew moved with the precision of soldiers who had spent their entire careers preparing for this moment. There was no hesitation, no fear, only purpose. "Ship status?" Voss asked. A synthetic voice, cold and smooth as polished steel, responded. "All systems optimal. Weapons online. Hull integrity at 100%. It was the ship's onboard AI. Designation Nyx. Unlike other military AIs, Nyx wasn't just a tactical assistant. She was built for war. Designed to predict Dominion strategies before they were even executed. To think, adapt, and kill. "The Dominion fleet still lingers at Saturn," Nyx continued. "They believe their display of force has cowed us." Voss's lips curled into a grin. "Then they are fools." Across the bridge, Captain Lin Zhao, his executive officer, stood with her arms crossed. "Sir, the Directorate has authorized Retribution Protocol. But that's just step one. What's the real play?" Voss turned to face his officers, his eyes burning with determination. "We don't just drive the Dominion from our system," he said. "We make them bleed." A murmur of approval spread through the command deck. Voss turned to Nyx. "Deploy the fleet." From the depths of Europa's ice, the first wave of human warships launched. Stealth destroyers, their hulls coated in radiation-dampening polymers, slipped into the void. Eye-controlled frigates armed with railgun accelerators jumped into warp, setting course for Saturn. Then, at the heart of it all, the Retribution moved. It ascended from Europa's surface like a rising titan, breaking free of its icy prison. Its engines burned crimson as it accelerated, a beast unleashed at last. As the fleet left the safety of Europa's shadow, Admiral Voss sent a single transmission across all human military channels. "This is Admiral Voss, commanding officer of the UES Retribution. Today, we break our chains. Today, we show the Dominion their greatest mistake." He paused. "All ships, engage." The Dominion fleet drifted in formation beyond Saturn, their warships still basking in the arrogance of their so-called victory. From the massive Zerethis, Eternal, High Executor Forak Mal observed the ruins of Titan through his command deck's panoramic viewport. Below, the once thriving colony now lay silent, nothing but burning husks and shattered domes. His mandibles clicked in satisfaction. The humans had not retaliated. They had not even responded. They were broken, as all lesser species had been before. Or so he thought. From the black void beyond Saturn's rings, death came for the Dominion. The first strike was silent. Dominion warships detected nothing until it was too late. From the shadows of the ice fields, human stealth destroyers uncloaked and fired their opening salvo. Hypervelocity railgun rounds, moving at relativistic speeds, punched through Dominion hulls like paper. A dozen Dominion cruisers detonated in fire and atmosphere, their crews ejected screaming into the void. Before the Dominion commanders could react, the second wave hit. Eye-piloted frigates swarmed from Europa's shadow, launching waves of EMP torpedoes. The projectiles spiraled into the Dominion formation, disrupting shield harmonics and crippling their targeting systems. Dominion officers howled in confusion as their command networks collapsed. And then came the Retribution. The Dominion fleet barely had time to register its approach before the Singularity cannon fired. A controlled black hole ripped through space, consuming the lead Dominion battleship in a flash of violet light. One moment, the ship was there. The next, it was gone, spaghettified into oblivion. The Dominion had known fear before, but this was something different. This was human vengeance. On the Retribution's bridge, Admiral Voss watched the battle unfold with the calm of a predator. Around him, his officers worked in ruthless synchronization, executing the war plan to perfection. Enemy fleet response, Voss asked. Nix, the ship's AI, answered with mechanical precision. Dominion forces are in disarray. Their primary command network is failing. Secondary fleet elements are retreating. Captain Lin Zhou turned from her station. Sir, do we pursue? Voss considered for only a moment. No, he said. We let them run. Zhao frowned. Why? Voss smiled darkly. Because we want them to tell the Dominion what happened here. He turned back to the viewport, watching as Dominion ships fled the battlefield in panic, their discipline shattered. They thought humanity was weak, he continued. They thought we were prey. His fingers tightened into a fist. Now they know we are predators. Aboard the Zarathus Eternal, High Executor Vorak Mal trembled as his ship's systems flickered in and out. His fleet was gone, wiped out in minutes by an enemy that should have been nothing more than an inconvenience. This is impossible, he hissed. And then a single message came through, broadcast on all Dominion frequencies, a human voice. We are humanity. We are not your servants. We are not your cattle. You came to our home and slaughtered our people. A pause. Now we are coming for you. Vorak Mal shuddered. For the first time in Dominion history, the predators of the galaxy had become the prey. Across the Dominion's vast empire, the impossible had become undeniable. Humanity, once a disregarded, subjugated race, had crushed a Dominion fleet. Word spread like wildfire. Dominion warlords dismissed it as lies. But the footage did not lie. The Retribution's singularity cannon. The stealth attack that had wiped out their ships in minutes. The voice that had broadcasted across every known Dominion channel. Now we are coming for you. Fear seeped into the halls of power. The Dominion had spent 10,000 years ruling through intimidation. They had never faced a species that struck back. Their response was immediate. The Obsidian Armada was mobilized. 200,000 warships, a force that had annihilated entire civilizations. An armada so vast that when it entered a system, it blotted out the stars. Its target, Earth. On the bridge of the Retribution, Admiral Elias Voss stared at the incoming fleet data. Thousands of Dominion ships were converging on Sol, a war machine that had never lost. The battle reports scrolled endlessly on the holoscreens, each projection a grim reminder of what was coming. Captain Lin Zhou exhaled. They're throwing everything they have at us. Voss didn't blink. Good. Zhao frowned. Good. Voss turned to his officers. The Dominion has always relied on overwhelming force. That's why they've never been challenged. But that's their weakness. He tapped the display, highlighting the incoming formation. They assume war is about numbers. They don't understand what one soldier, one weapon, one mind can do. He turned to General Atris Kane, the head of Mars' Black Ops division. Are the Titans ready? Kane grinned like a wolf. They've been waiting for this moment their entire lives. The Dominion Armada arrived in Sol, descending upon Mars first. The warlords expected an easy slaughter, an orbital bombardment to turn the red planet into glass. Instead, the Titans rose. The Titan mechs, humankind's ultimate weapons of war, launched from underground bunkers. Towering machines, each the size of a skyscraper, reinforced with gravity-dampening armor and wielding weapons that could shatter warships. The first Dominion dropships never reached the surface. As they descended, Titan mechs fired hypervelocity spears, piercing through hulls like paper. Anti-grav boosters launched them into the sky, intercepting enemy forces midair. One Titan, call sign Goliath, landed atop a Dominion war barge, its pilot, Commander Alex Rice, ripping through the hull with plasma-edged claws. He tore out the ship's reactor, tossing it into the next incoming wave like a grenade. Explosions ripped through the sky. Dominion ground forces, used to breaking weaker civilizations, found themselves hunted. In the dunes of Mars, Human soldiers in exosuits cut through the enemy like wolves among cattle. And above, the Retribution struck. Its Singularity cannon fired into the heart of the Dominion formation, swallowing battleships whole. EMP missiles crippled command networks. AI-driven warfleets flanked the Dominion, turning their vast numbers into a chaotic, tangled mess. The Dominion had come to exterminate a species. Instead, they were being systematically destroyed. On the flagship of the Obsidian Armada, Supreme Warlord Salvok watched in horror. Every assumption about humanity had been wrong. They were not weak. They were not outmatched. They were something else entirely. The battle was still raging, but Salvok felt something unfamiliar clawing at his mind. Something no Dominion warlord had ever felt before. Doubt. The stars above Mars burned. Wreckage drifted across space like metallic corpses, shattered Dominion warships tumbling lifelessly in the void. The Obsidian Armada, the most feared fleet in the galaxy, was learning what it meant to bleed. But the battle was far from over. Dominion reinforcements poured in, their sheer numbers threatening to overwhelm humanity's forces. For every Dominion warship destroyed, 5 more took its place. The vast, endless machine of their empire was pressing in, tightening its grip around Sol. And at its heart, Supreme Warlord Salvok stood aboard his dreadnought, the Black Tyrant, watching as humanity resisted where no species ever had before. His yellow eyes flickered with something between hatred and awe. "They fight like animals," he hissed. "No, my lord," one of his subordinates whispered, mandibles trembling. "They fight like gods." On the Retribution's bridge, Admiral Elias Voss studied the battle with the eyes of a predator. He saw the Dominion's numbers growing, saw their wave tactics, their relentless swarms. If humanity fought them head-on, they would be crushed. But Voss had no intention of fighting their war. He turned to Nyx, the Retribution's eye. "Time to show them we're not just fighting for survival. We're fighting to win." Nyx's synthetic voice hummed. "Shall I begin Phase 2? Do it." Across Sol, hidden orbital platforms came to life. For decades, Earth's engineers had been developing weapons in secret, devices too dangerous to reveal, too powerful to be allowed under the Dominion's treaties. Now, they would be unleashed. The Odin Network, a series of mass driver satellites, activated. Within seconds, tungsten rods, each the size of a skyscraper, were fired at relativistic speeds. The first impacted a Dominion carrier, instantly reducing it to molten slag. Another pierced a battleship clean through, leaving a burning hole in its wake. The Dominion had no counter. Their shields, designed to resist plasma and energy weapons, could not stop solid matter moving at near-light speeds. It was devastation on an unimaginable scale. The Obsidian Armada, unbreakable for 10,000 years, was fracturing. But even as the Dominion forces reeled, they launched their own final gambit. Salvok snarled, his mandibles clicking in frustration. His fleet was losing, but he had one last move to play. "All remaining ships," he growled, "push for Earth." This had never been about Mars, never been about Sol's outer defenses. The real target was Earth itself. If he could break the human homeworld, then the war would end in ashes. Hundreds of Dominion warships broke formation, making a suicidal push past the human fleet, their weapons primed for planetary bombardment. Earth's defenses were strong, but not invincible. If they reached orbit, it was over. On the Retribution, alarms blared. "They're making a run for Earth," Zhao shouted. "We can't intercept them all in time." Admiral Voss didn't hesitate. "Then we take out their leader." Nyx's voice came through cold and steady. "The Black Tyrant has moved into range." Voss's eyes burned with determination. "Target the Supreme Warlord's ship," he ordered. The Retribution's cannons turned toward the Black Tyrant. The final battle had begun. The Retribution surged forward, engines burning like a second sun. Every cannon, every missile bay, every weapon system locked onto the Black Tyrant, the Dominion's flagship and the heart of their invasion force. Aboard the enemy dreadnought, Supreme Warlord Salvok watched the Retribution's approach with burning fury. Humanity should not have survived this long. They should have fallen like all the others. And yet, here they were, turning the tide of history. He refused to accept it. All remaining ships, Salvok roared, protect the Black Tyrant at all costs. His warships tightened formation, forming a near-impenetrable wall of Dominion steel. Frigates and destroyers threw themselves into the line of fire, sacrificing themselves to shield their leader. But the Retribution was undeterred. On the bridge, Admiral Voss stood like a statue, watching his fleet carve a path through the Dominion's desperate defenses. They think they can save their master, Voss said coldly. Let's prove them wrong. Singularity cannon charged, Nix reported, targeting the Black Tyrant's reactor core. Voss nodded. Fire. The Retribution's super weapon unleashed hell. A miniature black hole ripped through the enemy fleet, warping space itself as it swallowed warships whole. The Black Tyrant shook violently, shields buckling, hull plating torn away as if devoured by an invisible beast. Inside, Salvok was thrown against the command console, his vision blurred. Sparks rained from the ceiling. His flagship was dying. No, he growled. No, this is impossible. The screens around him showed chaos, his forces collapsing, human titans tearing through ground forces, Dominion warships deserting the battlefield in blind panic. The Obsidian Armada, his armada, was broken. And worse, the message was spreading. Across the Dominion's empire, enslaved species were watching, seeing, believing. The invincible empire was losing. And so, the galaxy rose up. On the Dominion-controlled worlds of Velka Prime, Dracis Oix, and the Thalrex Verge, revolts erupted overnight. The Velkans, long forced to serve as laborers, seized their overseers' weapons and took back their cities. The Dracians, whose fleets had been dismantled centuries ago, launched hidden warships from underground vaults, tearing through Dominion supply lines. Even the Thalrex, the Dominion's most loyal client species, turned on their overlords, assassinating regional governors and declaring their independence. The Dominion had ruled for 10,000 years, but in a single day, humanity had set the galaxy on fire. Back in Sol, the Black Tyrant was burning. Salvok, bloodied and enraged, slammed his fist against the failing controls. He would not die like this. He turned to his bridge crew. Prepare for. A blinding light consumed the command deck. The Retribution's final shot pierced the Black Tyrant's core. For the first time in Dominion history, a supreme warlord fell in battle. Salvok did not scream. He did not beg. He simply vanished in fire. On the Retribution's bridge, silence fell. Then Nex's voice broke through. Enemy flagship, destroyed. Admiral Voss exhaled slowly. He looked at the battlefield. The Dominion fleet was scattering, leaderless. The war was no longer about survival. Now, humanity was on the hunt. The remnants of the Dominion fleet fled in all directions, their once mighty warships reduced to desperate survivors scrambling for the nearest hyperspace lanes. For the first time in history, the predators of the galaxy had become the prey. Aboard the Retribution, Admiral Elias Voss surveyed the battlefield. The Black Tyrant was nothing but burning wreckage, its supreme warlord erased from existence. Around them, the ruins of the Obsidian Armada drifted like tombstones in the void. But Voss wasn't smiling. The battle for Sol was over, but the war had just begun. Enemy forces are retreating, Captain Zhao reported. We could let them go. Send a message. Voss shook his head. No survivors. Zhao blinked. Sir. Voss's voice was cold. The Dominion never left survivors. That's why they ruled for 10,000 years. He turned to the fleet command. That's why we're going to burn them to the ground. Across the Sol system, humanity's counteroffensive erupted with terrifying precision. Stealth corvettes and AI-piloted warships chased fleeing Dominion vessels into hyperspace, tracking their movements across the stars. No ship, no officer, no soldier was allowed to escape. On Mars, the Titan mechs crushed the last pockets of Dominion resistance. The red sands were littered with broken enemy walkers, their insectoid pilots hunted down by human special forces. And on Earth, the United Earth Directorate declared total war. Far beyond Sol, in the Dominion's imperial core, the news spread like wildfire. The Vulcan revolt had liberated 6 planets in a week. The Dratians had annihilated an entire Dominion fleet, using warships hidden for centuries. The Thalrex had assassinated 5 Dominion warlords, replacing them with human-backed leaders. The Dominion's own subjects had turned against them. Panic set in. On the Dominion capital world of Zereth Prime, the surviving warlords gathered in their grand citadel, a towering obsidian spire overlooking a world once thought untouchable. Now fear filled its halls. Varak Mal, once a smug enforcer of Dominion law, now trembled before the High Council. How could this happen? One warlord snarled. How could the humans do this? They have become what we feared, another whispered. They have become us. Varak Mal swallowed hard. We must negotiate. Offer peace. A truce. The warlord stared at him in stunned silence. The Dominion had never offered peace before. It had never needed to. Until now. Until humanity. A new voice cut through the chamber. Cold. Merciless. Fools. The warlords turned. At the head of the room stood Overlord Salcor, the last remaining supreme warlord, and now the de facto ruler of what remained of the Dominion. His chitinous armor gleamed under the dim light, his yellow eyes burning with something no Dominion leader had ever needed before. Desperation. There will be no truce, Salcor growled. Humanity will not accept it. He turned, activating a holographic display. It showed an incoming human fleet, a war fleet larger than anything the Dominion had ever faced. They're coming, Salcor whispered. The warlords shuddered. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Dominion was afraid. The Dominion had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. Now, they were the ones begging for mercy. But humanity had none to give. Aboard the Retribution, Admiral Elias Voss stood at the helm of the largest human armada ever assembled. Earth's war machine, hidden for decades, was now unleashed. Thousands of warships, dreadnoughts, carriers, titans, stealth corvettes, pierced through the void like a reaper's scythe. Ahead lay Zereth Prime, the Dominion homeworld, the heart of their empire, the place where it would all end. On Zereth Prime, chaos reigned. The streets were filled with Dominion civilians, once arrogant, now terrified, as the sky darkened with the approach of human warships. In the Grand Citadel, Overlord Salcor and his warlords stared at their monitors in horror. Their fleet is too large, one of them stammered. We can't stop them. Zalcor bared his fangs. Then we make them pay for every inch of ground. The Dominion's final defenses activated. Planetary shields flared to life. Orbital cannons turned toward the approaching fleet. Every remaining Dominion warship formed a desperate last stand. But humanity did not hesitate. The battle for Zereth Prime began with fire. The Retribution's Singularity Cannon tore through the first orbital station, reducing it to cosmic dust. Human warships smashed through enemy formations, railguns and plasma lances punching through Dominion hulls like paper. On the ground, Titan mechs descended from the sky, each landing like a falling god, their weapons tearing through Dominion legions. And at the center of it all, leading the charge, was Commander Alex Reyes, the Titan pilot who had become a legend after the battle for Mars. He landed in the Grand Plaza of the Dominion capital, his Titan's massive foot crushing a fleeing warlord beneath it. The people of Zereth Prime, once so certain of their superiority, watched in horror as the nightmare they had created came for them. In the Grand Citadel, Overlord Salcor knew it was over. The defenses were failing. The warlords were dead or fleeing. And then, the doors exploded inward. Admiral Voss stepped inside. his exo-armor gleaming, his eyes like steel. Behind him, human soldiers advanced, weapons aimed at the last surviving ruler of the Dominion. Zalcor snarled, "You think killing me will end this?" Voss stepped forward, raising his pistol. No. He pulled the trigger. Zalcor's body hit the floor. The Dominion was dead. The war was over. But humanity had only just begun. Across the stars, former Dominion worlds raised human banners, pledging allegiance to their new rulers. Where once they had been prey, now they were masters. And at the heart of it all, aboard the Retribution, Admiral Voss stood before a galactic map, studying 1,000 new battlefields. Captain Zhao approached. "What now, sir?" Voss's lips curled into a small, dangerous smile. "Now," he said, staring into the endless dark of space, "now we build an empire."